Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a really close look at something near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Class balance in Maplestory Classic World.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. The upcoming release, everyone's excited, but... Well, the original late game, especially fourth job, it had some pretty serious flaws. And that's why this proposal we're looking at today, it's all about restoring what they call true class identity. It's really vital stuff.
So we're diving into fixing those fourth job dynamics, because launching without that...
Oh, it'd be a disaster. We just end up with the exact same meta, the same problems that plagued the original game for years.
Right, and remind us, what was that meta exactly? We touched on it before, the old tier list.
Yeah, the tier list, it wasn't just a small gap, it was like a huge chasm. You had your S tiers, right? Bishop, Dark Knight, Night Lord, absolute rulers.
And then everyone else was just kind of there.
Pretty much. C tier, D tier. They weren't just, 10% weaker. It was more fundamental. Some classes just couldn't really do the endgame content efficiently, or weren't even wanted in parties for the key roles.
So this proposal, the goal isn't to make every class identical, is it?
No, definitely not. The aim is to make every single class viable, like a solid A tier pick. Useful, desirable.
Well, if that's gonna have to, if the goal is to make all classes viable and optimal, I think the change needs to happen not at the character level, but at the content level. So require more mechanics that can be thrown into the boss, that requires a bandit with dark side or a smoke screen, or something that's unique to that class. That's what I think is needed
in a party for what they uniquely bring.
Okay, so how did they propose getting there? Making everyone A tier sounds ambitious.
Well, the roadmap seems pretty clear. It's about small surgical nerfs to those few S-tier classes, the ones that were just way too dominant.
Just reining them in a bit.
Exactly. And then, crucially, combine that with significant, systemic upgrades for the lower tier classes. We're talking major changes to how they function, their utility, how they work together.
Interdependence.
That's scary. When I hear that, I get scared.
It's important to stress the focus here is narrow. It's only on fourth job balance, the late game.
Why only late game?
Because changing the early game, first, second, third job progression, it's just too complex, too many knock-on effects, especially this close to a potential release. You gotta fix the endgame destination first.
Okay, let's unpack this. The roadmap to true class relevance. So before we even talk about changing skills like Sharp Eye or Genesis, there are some groundwork things, prerequisites.
Absolutely. Foundational stuff. The whole plan kind of rests on assuming that several really big systemic problems from the original game are already fixed in this classic world version.
Right. You can't balance skills if the underlying mechanics are broken. What are these assumptions?
Three main things. First, gotta assume major skill bugs are fixed. Skills need to actually work, as the descriptions say they do.
Makes sense. No weird stuff.
I mean, that's kind of, yeah.
Hitting properly, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Second, we have to assume the whole leeching...
It'd be nice if skills did what it said it does.
Okay, we should touch on why leeching is so bad for balance later. What's the third big one?
The absolute biggest one, HP washing. The proposal assumes the entire HP system is redesigned, so HP washing is just not a thing anymore, or at least not necessary in the way it was.
Okay, for years people just complained about the cost, the time, the complex guides.
Yeah, and those were real issues, don't get me wrong. It was incredibly burdensome, often needing real money through NX for reset.
A lot of, there's going to be some disagreements with the video, but this one I agree on. Right? HP washing was a manipulation that the gamers found. It wasn't even it's ridiculous. The developer needs to figure out a way to mitigate the need for HP washing to begin with on the content side. Players shouldn't have to find a lucrative, especially how costly it was to a HP wash your character. That shouldn't be the player's duty to figure out how they can enjoy the content by spending hundreds of dollars. I mean, it costs so much money to HP wash your character. It was a huge turnoff. That change needs to come from the developer side on how they develop the game, not from the player side. And getting rid of HP washing, 100% agree with. It's a good thing that that's happening. And I'm sure they'll change change how the game is played to accommodate the fact that there won't be HP washing.
But that wasn't the core problem.
It was a symptom. The real problem, the fundamental damage HP washing did, was to the warrior class identity.
How specifically?
Think about it. Traditionally, MMORPGs have roles. Warriors are tanks, right? High HP meant to soak damage. Mages, archers, thieves. They're squishy. They stand back.
That's the classic setup.
HP washing let those squishy classes, your Night Lords, your Archers, your Corsairs, get so much extra HP that they could survive pretty much any big boss hit on their own.
So if my Night Lord doesn't instantly die from Zakum's arm slam,
then why do you need a warrior? Why do you need their unique skill, Hyper Body, which massively buffs party HP? Why do you need that?
I agree with that.
You don't.
It made the warriors
HP washing did mitigate the need for Hyper Body.
Their core reason for existing in that specific party structure just vanished. That's the identity crisis HP washing caused.
Okay, so we can't just rip out HP washing and do nothing else? Because then the squishy classes just die instantly to bosses, right? They can't participate at all.
Exactly. That would just swap one broken meta for another, making the game inaccessible. So the proposal has these guidelines for fixing HP.
What are they?
First, the baseline. Every class must be able to get enough HP just by leveling up normally through natural growth to participate in the late game content they're supposed to be doing. No washing required for basics.
I mean, this is probably obvious, but that's a good change, given that certain classes reach that threshold slower than other classes, right? Like, you'd be surprised mages can actually they can take more damage than, because they have magic guard. They have like self buffs that mitigate damage as well. So this is obvious, but make it so that not every class is going to the boss around the same level. Make it easier for the warriors. Obviously, they have more HP than the hermits, than the Night Lords and the bowmasters and the marksmans. And let there be a progression ladder there as well, a sense of progression, and make it a little harder for the damage dealers to enter into that type of environment and participate in that content. But overall, yes, it should be that all classes should have enough HP to enjoy all the content that is being released. And that's on the developer side. Development has to figure that out. Not the HP washing. No, we can't solve that with HP washing.
Survival. Accessibility first.
It shouldn't be our responsibility.
Naturally tanky, doesn't that bring back the warrior problem?
That's the second guideline, the balancing constraint. Yes, everyone needs enough HP, but the squishier classes still need to have low enough HP that support skills remain important.
So they can survive basic hits, maybe, but they still absolutely need that hyper body from a Dark Knight, or maybe these other defensive buffs we'll talk about, to survive the really big hits.
Precisely. Support skills must still be necessary. You need that interdependence. The damage needs to be tuned so it's still threatening without support.
Okay, so how do we actually get this higher natural HP growth without washing? What are the proposed methods?
The source mentions three main ways. One, you could just give bigger chunks of HP during the job advancements, like a big boost at level 30, 70, 120.
Okay, lump sums.
Two, you could change the actual formula for how much HP you gain per level, maybe make it scale better with stats, or just be higher overall.
A fundamental formula change.
Or third, maybe less disruptive to the core formulas, you could introduce new quests, or maybe specific endgame gear pieces that grant significant HP boosts as part of normal progression. Like a mandatory quest reward before a major boss.
So multiple paths, but the goal is the same. Enough natural HP, but not so much its support becomes useless.
Exactly. That sets the stage. With bugs fixed, leeching...
Can't argue with that statement, right?
Now we can actually talk about balancing the classes themselves.
Right. And the philosophy here is key. How do we balance without making everyone feel the same? That's the classic MMORPG tightrope walk.
It really is. Guideline 1 for the
how would we do that?
Is about content accessibility and progression parity.
Meaning
every class needs to feel like they can actually do everything. They need to be viable for bossing, viable for mobbing, the two main things you do in Maplestory.
And crucially,
every class needs a guaranteed desirable spot in a boss.
It's like a paradox, right? Like, you want all the classes to do everything at a level where it's viable, but at the same time, how do you create the distinguishments from each class and make sure they keep their identity when some classes already, their identity, like let's look at Fire Poison Mage, their identity to veteran players, they already know this. Their identity is solo grinding and just like being one of the best mobbers in the game and farm characters. Is it low volume? I have to see if I can fix that. But as I was saying, Fire Poison Mages it's part of their identity to not participate in certain things, but to be exceptionally well at other things. So it's going to be, I'm sure she'll explain it more how that can be attained, and I'll give my input and stuff, but that's one of the hardest problems to solve is classes like Ice Lightning Mages and Fire Poison Mages have a strong pro, one of the strongest pros in the game. They're the best mobbers, best farmers, best solo grinders, with Ice Lightning Mages being able to ride both of the horses well, the solo grinding and farming horse, and also the party grinding, and also being viable in raids a little bit more than Fire Poison Mages, if in the framework of what's meta and what's optimal, right? So how do you capture both? Because then what happens is if you try to bring the Ice Lightning Mage and Fire Poison Mage into the mix of raids and making them essentially a viable class just like any other class, who wouldn't want to play Fire Poison Mage? And the opposite side of the argument will happen where, okay, how come Fire Poison like mages in general get a full map attack type of attack, but they're doing just as much in a raid or a end game content setting, like a party setting, and that just triggers an ongoing effect of people trying to seek balance in every little thing, where, you know, I think it's best that we just accept the imbalance and kind of coexist where there is balance and imbalance, right? That some characters definitely have imperfections and flaws that is made up by their strong pros and strong benefits of playing that class. But we'll see what she has to say.
Boss raid party, not just carried along, but actually wanted for what they bring.
Which ties into progression rates, right? That was a huge issue originally.
A massive issue. Think about the original 4th job Archmages. Their big screen clearing skills, Genesis,
FMA,
Shower,
right?
Blizzard, were just ridiculously overpowered for grinding.
They could level way faster than anyone else.
Right? Double, sometimes triple the experience rate of a single target class.
That's true, but what about the opposite? What about the other side of that same argument is we need to look at, like, what's the cost though? You can't, unless you have a lot of money, you're not sitting there spamming Blizzard or Meteor Strike or Genesis at all. Unless you get lucrative and figure out a training method like the KMS people have, the KMS community has, where lower players will pay money to party with an Archmage or a Bishop to spam FMA. You know, essentially what the lower players are doing is providing a cost-effective method of training for Archmages while they're sharing a little bit of that XP, but it costs them no money now, and they're grinding a lot easier by standing on one platform, because those lower level players will position themselves where monsters respawn that isn't reached by the FMA being used by Archmages or Bishops. So there's a give and take there, and there's a system that's community driven that has created a solution to that. But in GMS, in my years of playing GMS and playing Western private servers and also Artail, I don't see that going on at a higher level form. People tend to just kind of stick to solo grinding or doing party quests or raid. Like the times you see people getting together and enjoying the game together is when they're doing party quests or they're doing a raid. Outside of those times, people just go solo grind most of the time, and that's what I've seen. So, you know, that's one thing. They can't spam the skill. It's too costly.
Like a hero, even if the hero had way better gear. That breaks the parity guideline. You can't have classes progressing wildly differently just because their mobbing skills are broken. Rates need to be roughly equal.
Okay, equal access, equal progression. What's the second big guideline for balancing?
This one's maybe even more important. Maintaining unique class roles. This is about preserving that true MMORPG feel.
What are we trying to avoid?
We're trying to avoid ending up like current Maple, some might argue. A game where every class can basically solo everything, everyone has flash jump or some equivalent, everyone just buffs themselves. It loses that collaborative core.
So classic world needs to be different.
It needs real differences. Classes must have unique HP pools, different damage ceilings and floors, distinct mobility options, and really important unique utility skills that only they provide.
Back to interdependence again.
Exactly. Foster interdependence. Every class needs clear strengths, but also clear, defined weaknesses. Weaknesses that other classes are specifically designed to cover.
You guys can hear better.
You need me, I need you. Otherwise,
why party up? If you don't need my buffs or my utility or my specific damage type, why would I take up a slot?
Okay, so interdependence is the goal. How do we actually build that into the game mechanics? The source looked at a couple of approaches, right? One was rejected.
Yeah, the first idea they explored was expanding the party quest concept into the late game.
Like Ludi PQ, where you absolutely needed a mage for teleport or rogue for dark sight. That kind of forced diversity.
Exactly.
Yep.
Imagine late game bosses having phases that require specific class abilities.
And that's a good point. That's the point that I was making. I agree with that.
Damage check needing fire and ice skills simultaneously.
The source mentioned Crimsonwood Keep PQ had some good ideas there. High damage checks for archers, specific navigation for pirates.
Right. Conceptually, it's sound designed for forcing cooperation.
But it wasn't practical for Classic World.
Impractical is the word. It would require fundamentally redesigning all the iconic late-game bosses, Zakum, Horntail, Pink Bean. That's a massive development task.
And it clashes with the whole nostalgia vibe.
Yeah.
People want the old bosses just balanced.
Precisely. Reworking them that heavily goes against the classic feel. So,
I mean, you don't have to necessarily make changes to what exists, but you could add other party quests. There's areas. Let's just say classic Maplestory. When it comes out, people still, because the audience still the same audience, they still tend to flock to party quests and don't really look for ways to optimize party grinding. And it's the select few that do, and most people just opt to solo grind. You can implement more party quests within those levels where party quests right now doesn't exist, and add those elements into those. You can leave the ones that currently exist alone if you want, and especially like endgame raids like Horntail and Zakum. It really depends. You can power through Horntail and Zakum without doing the, doing it the proper way. You can, but even in Horntail right now, at least the way it's played in KMS, is that you need either a Bandit or a Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight, obviously, because they offer hyper body, but they're usually the ones that get lured, and they have to get, they have a little bit of responsibility there, and Bandits too, with their high avoidability and the fact that they have smokescreen. They're the ones that usually get lured. Now, I don't know how smokescreen is used when they're lured, but maybe it's like they're lured and then they avoid, or they don't take too much damage. They take just enough damage, but they don't die. And when they're up, they just put smokescreen down or something like that. I don't really know how it's done, but I know that for the charm or the lure that Horntail uses, the designated targets are most of the time Dark Knights and Shadowers. And if you don't, you could brute force through that and just let a knight, take another Night Lord or a Bowman and let them get lured instead of the Dark Knight and Shadower. but you're doing it in a brute force way. So, and those raids, I do agree, they are kind of dated and they are more fit for people to just brute force them once they learn the mechanic. Like just have enough tank and spank, right? Is the word. You just tank the damage and spank the mob. It is more designed towards that, but maybe they can add maybe they can add more raids that are similar to that style. Who wouldn't want more raids? Maybe not too many like all at once, but adding one more raid that actually requires you to you to have a fire poison mage or a ice lightning mage affinity attached to the mobs that makes it easier for those players to join. You know, like I said, if it comes from the content side on requiring and making changes that require players to involve off meta characters, then I think that's a good thing. I don't see anything wrong.
So maybe that's an idea for some future Classic Plus expansion, but not for the initial launch.
So that leaves the other approach.
Right. Finish implementing class synergy. The diagnosis here is that the idea of synergy was already in the game. It just wasn't fully developed or applied consistently. It was sort of unfinished.
Okay, define pair synergy in this context. What does that mean?
It's basically designing classes in pairs, where one class's abilities directly complement the weaknesses or significantly boost the strengths of the other class in that pair.
And the prime example, the one that was mostly finished, was
Archer and Night Lord. That's the textbook case, the one that ended up dominating the meta.
Why did they work so well together? What was the key synergy?
Almost entirely down to the Archer Sharp Eye skill.
Yep.
Night Lord damage is all about critical hits, right? Big numbers on crits.
Yeah, Lucky 7, triple throw.
Yeah.
They relied on crits.
And Sharp Eye gave a massive party-wide boost
Sure
to
did.
critical hit rate and critical hit damage. For a Night Lord, that wasn't just a small buff, it was exponential. It made their damage output skyrocket.
And the Archer benefited too, from things like haste, maybe.
Yeah, Archers were slow, so getting haste from the Night Lord or someone else was helpful. But the main synergy flowed from Archer to Night Lord via Sharp Eye.
And because this synergy was so powerful, and Night Lords could HP wash to survive, what happened to party composition?
It became incredibly rigid, toxic, really. For maximum efficiency, the absolute best party for Zachem or Horntail was one Archer for Sharp Eye, period.
And the other 5 slots.
5 Night Lords. Maybe you'd swap one Night Lord for a Bishop for Hyper Body and Resurrection, but often not even that.
Wow. So everyone else, heroes, paladins, mages, corsairs, buccaneers, just completely irrelevant for top-tier bossing.
Largely, yes. They just couldn't compete with the sheer focus damage and utility of that specific setup. They were left out.
So the solution proposed is simple, conceptually at least.
I mean, I know, I understand what she's saying,
For archers and Night Lords,
but I will say heroes
all the classes.
Heroes did a lot of damage with Sharp Eyes too, and so did Dark Knight. Now, the Bowmaster and the Night Lord definitely work off well together, and they are considered the most damage in the game when you pair them together, especially for a Night Lord. The codependency is crazy for both of them, and when you put those two together, the Night Lord does ridiculous amounts of damage. But what else does the Night Lord really offer other than haste? That the bandits also offer haste, right? Night Lord's main identity is damage dealing. So, I think it's a good thing that they hold that spot along with the bowmen working off together, and two of them kind of really shining in the area, in the responsibility that they were given. I think it's a good thing.
Creating specific necessary pairs.
Oh god, this area just gives me PTSD.
So every class has a partner they rely on, and who relies on them, giving everyone...
So let's see what she has to say about the pairing system with other classes.
The actual proposed changes. Starting with the baseline pair, Archers and Night Lords. Since they already worked, what needs changing?
Minimal core synergy changes, really. It's more about quality of life and, crucially, damage calibration.
Quality of life.
Messel up, yeah.
Mobility has always been their big weakness, right? Stuck on the ground mostly.
Exactly. Painfully immobile. The proposal gives them a simple but effective fix. Let them jump attack.
It's being able to attack while jumping.
Yeah. It doesn't give them
Wait.
flash jump or teleport, keeps their identity as less mobile, but it smooths out their gameplay massively, lets them reposition and attack much more fluidly in boss fights. A small change.
See, this is where I don't agree. I think I understand what she's trying to say, but archers in general have a different playstyle than assassins when it comes to like the philosophy of their gameplay and their identity. Completely different. Assassins use flash jump to get away from mobs and grind them down from a distance. They're supposed to be nimble, fast, quick. And the fact that haste is a party buff already makes the archers like it's a good buff. It's an enough buff for the archers. Archers don't need to jump attack. It's going to feel like a mobile game. I think it's going to feel cheap, and it also strays away from the archer's core identity, which is micromanaging their little space with arrow boom, Hawkeye, power knockback. The whole idea is to keep enemies at bay, not for you to jump attack and make space. That's more of a Night Lord assassin identity. The dependent honey quest was something else I always regret not paying for it. Yeah, I'm not doing that quest. I did it on my main character and not again. Right now I'm just grinding and killing time.
With a big impact.
Okay, and the damage calibration. These should still be top single target damage, but
not absurdly dominant. The proposal is clear. Yes, Archer Knight Lord is the premier single target pair, but they shouldn't be doing like triple the damage of the pirate pair. Their damage needs to be brought down relative to others.
So, still the best, but not the only choice by a mile.
Exactly. And importantly,
I thought pirates do just as much damage as Night Lords, if not more, with sharp eyes.
Boss
I
killers.
will maintain that identity. Okay, next pair. Buccaneer and Corsair, the pirates. They have some synergy already, right? Time leap, speed infusion.
They do, yeah. Time leap especially is huge resetting party cooldowns. That benefits so many classes. Speed infusion is great for attack speed too, but they need tuning to really compete damage-wise.
So how do we boost their damage and synergy?
For the Buccaneer, a slight base damage increase on their main attacks. But more strategically, the proposal adds the lightning element to their charge skills, Energy Blast and Energy Orb.
Why add lightning?
It gives them elemental flexibility. If a boss is weak to lightning, the Buccaneer now has a strong tool to exploit that, adding unique utility that the Night Lord Archer pair doesn't have.
It makes them more versatile. And the Corsair. Their damage relies a lot on their battleship summon staying alive.
Right.
Which can be tricky.
Very tricky. The ship is powerful but vulnerable. The key insight here is that the Corsair benefits indirectly from the other changes we're about to discuss, especially the defensive ones.
How so?
If the party is safer overall, thanks to new defensive buffs, the Corsair's ship is inherently safer. If the ship stays up more consistently, the Corsair's damage output becomes much more reliable and scales up significantly.
Ah, so better party defense, more consistent Corsair damage.
Exactly.
I'm listening.
In an ideal
I'm listening, and I wanted to see where I would want to pause and like give my input. I think one thing about Buccaneers is that it wasn't just really great for the Corsairs, but it was great for the entire party. So Buccaneers, I know she's doing a pairing thing and synergy with pairing system, but Buccaneers didn't really need that, and neither did the Corsairs. To my understanding, Corsairs could do more just as much as damage as Night Lords, if not more, in the later stages of the game. The battleship was one of the hardest hitting skills, from what I remember. And a Night Lord damage with sharp eyes and Corsairs battleship cannons with sharp eyes, it wasn't that big of a difference to make a case that Corsairs needed a buff in some sort, or they needed a change or whatever. And even heroes do a lot of damage. A lot of people forego heroes, but you slap a Sharp Eyes 30 on a hero and it's a level 160 plus hero with advanced combo attack mastered and with brandish 30 and with stance. Nobody's really touching that hero. It's probably doing more damage than a Dark Knight. And I've heard and seen heroes getting the most EXP at a raid, out damaging the Night Lord. So this whole damage thing, Night Lords are strong, yes, and just in theory, it's true that they would be a lot stronger than heroes, but especially bowmasters, because they don't have as high of avoidability, a lot of times they get stun locked and they get CC'd, and Night Lords too, once they get hit, they get pushed back. And I mean, I still think warriors get hit a lot more than Night Lords because of high avoidability and fake and stuff, but there's still a single target damage in an area where you can hit 2 Horntail arm and a wing, or multiple Zakum arms, and let's say like even the main body. I would argue that it would be fairly close with the Corsair's battle cannon and the hero's brandish. Give me 1 second.
Situations with the ship up and hitting hard.
Oh, and yeah, Buccaneers synergize with all classes. Their time infusion skill wasn't just beneficial for Corsairs. I mean, it's obvious. The speed infusion and time leap skill gave huge boost to any type of class. You could pair that with anybody and it's good. You know, I've seen it being used on Smokescreen to get out of sticky situations. It gets used on Resurrection a lot of times. Okay. But we'll see. We'll continue to see. I like the idea of adding a lightning charge to Buccaneers, though. I think that's pretty cool. And, you know, it kind of looks about right. When they transform, they do have this like a lightning sparks around them that makes it look like they would have a lightning affinity. And if you can get a slight damage boost to Buccaneers, I think it's always good. I always felt like they were, for how cool they look, it was a little underwhelming, their damage. Like, to the point, yeah, now they just really feel like a utility character that goes and aids the party more than anything. But if you add a lightning affinity, and maybe there's some raids in the future that comes out with lightning affinity, they have more of a spot, more of a, you know, they take up more, they have more to show for. They have more to show for, you know. I'm gonna play this real quick.
A well-supported Corsair could potentially even out-damage a Night Lord in sustained fights, trading maybe slightly lower peak potential for better consistency and that time-like utility from the Buccaneer.
Okay, that sets up the next big overhaul perfectly. Paladin and the Archmages. This sounds like where the major defensive solution comes in, addressing the gap left by fixing HP washing.
This is huge. The game needs a way for squishy classes to survive big hits without HP washing. So we need dedicated defense supports.
And the roles assigned are?
Paladin, the warrior with the shield, takes the weapon defense support role, makes thematic sense. And the elemental archmages, Ice Lightning and Fire Poison, take the magic defense support role.
Okay, but to add these powerful new defensive skills, they need to replace some existing kind of useless fourth job skills, right? Which ones get the axe?
Yeah, gotta clear out the deadwood. For paladins, it's Power Guard. Just never scaled well, reflected pitiful damage, often got you killed faster.
Right, useless. And for mages?
Mana Reflection. Same deal. Tiny chance to reflect magic, unreliable, not worth the points. They're replaced with a new concept, kind of a split and improved version of an old warrior skill, Iron Will.
Oh, interesting callback. So, what are the new skills? Paladin first.
Paladin gets Iron Shield. It's a party buff. Big condition. You must have a shield equipped to use it. It temporarily reduces incoming damage from weapon attacks for the whole party.
Okay, physical defense buff. And the Archmages.
They get Iron Mind. Same deal. Requires a shield, party buff. This one reduces incoming damage from magic attacks.
Covering both damage types. But the really clever part is how the reduction works, right? It's not a flat.
That's interesting, right? Making use of shields for in both mages and for paladins.
So the paladin or mage has the potential for defense, but the individual player needs to actually have decent defense gear to benefit fully.
Exactly. Let's take that squishy Night Lord again. If they've bothered to get, say, 130 weapon defense through scrolls and gear, they get the maximum, maybe 50% damage reduction from Iron Shield.
But if they ignored defense, maybe only have 90 weapon defense.
then they only get the minimum benefit, maybe just 25% reduction. It forces everyone, especially those ranged classes, to actually care about defense stats on their gear.
That makes defense scrolls and potentials suddenly valuable, like accuracy for melee classes.
Precisely. It creates a whole new layer of gearing strategy for classes that previously just ignored defense entirely. And the scaling is slightly different for warriors themselves, needing higher defense thresholds to get the max benefit, keeping it balanced.
That's a really elegant system. Okay, what about their damage synergy? Mages making things weak for Paladin's elemental attacks that existed but was bad.
Terrible uptime, like 10 seconds of weakness, useless in a real boss fight. The proposal completely reworks the Archmage demon skills.
So the new Ice Demon.
Instead of 10 seconds, it makes enemies weak to fire and lightning for a full 60 seconds. Long enough to be genuinely useful.
And the new Fire Demon.
Same idea. Makes enemies
Those type of
weak
skills
to ice and
don't get
poison.
used for sure, right? Like Fire Demon and Ice Demon. Those skills kind of are forgotten about. I like the approach of it's like creative and bold. But to see it really play out in real life, I wonder, like, there's so many things I feel like have to change. You would have to create a raid where, I think there's a lot of preconditions that have to be met in order to implement, let's say, a tank archmage that goes a shield, all of that. But the idea is very cool. It is very cool.
60 seconds. This transforms the Paladin's elemental charges and blows. With a mage partner setting up long-lasting weaknesses, the Paladin becomes a really strong cleave damage dealer in boss fights.
But there's a trade-off, right? To make Archmages viable supports in bossing, their own ridiculously strong mobbing skills need a nerf. Genesis, Meteor, Blizzard.
Absolutely necessary nerf. They break that progression parity guideline otherwise. Whether you reduce the damage or shrink the area of effect, those skills have to be brought back in line so mages don't just dominate grinding completely.
Makes sense. Balance requires...
Another thing that I thought about listening to this is that, the reason why Maplestory is a beautiful game and a game that a lot of people enjoy and play is because it's really a canvas left open by the developer intentionally for community to come together and create their own ways of party grinding and playing the game. The whole thing about the synergy system and ways to putting too much hands-on and controlling the game too much and essentially telling the players how to play the game I feel like never works out for an MMO. Most MMOs that I play is usually just open and it's a canvas form and players figure out what the best way to grind is, and within that comes all these lucrative ways that people get together and make it work. Now, if you just give them a guideline and like literally the framework is there and all they have to do is follow it, it could work, but I feel like it gets boring. In sooner or later, that type of structure is going to restrict player creativity and restrain people from really will restrict players more than help them. So let's say, for example, now this Paladin and Archmage have a good synergy together and they're partying together and grinding together. They're gonna be very limited because it's always better to just party together, and that's what clearly the structure is and the framework. They're going to look for training grounds that's only viable to them, that has an affinity that they can take advantage of. And even then, they don't have Holy Symbol in their party. So, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of this combo right here. I like the individual changes. I think it's creative, and, the whole tank Archmage thing is very interesting indeed. But at I do remain skeptical and a little worried that putting controlling the game too much and trying to frame the game with so much developer's intent is going to take away that freedom and the freedom that you feel playing the game, right? And I feel like a lot of developers have this issue when they make an MMO. They try to create the perfect MMO through their vision and how they see the game and what the game should be. And a lot of times that vision is misleading and guiding, or people don't resonate with it. You just don't have enough knowledge to create the perfect MMO. And what ends up happening is you want the game to develop a certain way, so you release updates and contents for that to satisfy your vision, and it becomes very restricting and constraining. And players don't have the liberty to do what they want to do, but they're forced to do the content the way you see the game should be played. And I feel like that could happen is if there's too much involvement in the development team, especially something like this. It's a synergy system where you're telling the players that it's better for you to party with this person and this person only. And, you know, it's a cool concept, but I feel like the better one would be the KMS community's method of training together in a huge party, or let the players figure out and find out their own system that way.
Give and take.
Okay,
Now for the pair that was already on top, Dark Knight and Bishop, they had the hyperbody, the healing synergy, resurrection, dispel. How do you adjust them without killing them?
the focus shifts. It's less about raw power, more about necessity. And the first target has to be Holy Symbol.
The 150% experience boost? Too good in boss fights. Made bishops mandatory for the wrong reason.
Exactly. You brought a bishop for the EXP, not necessarily for the survival tools. The proposal is direct.
I don't know about that.
Effectiveness in boss fights. Maybe down to 110%.
Let me pause it there real quick. Especially in early Maplestory, bishops were mandatory because of the healing and the dispel and so much utility that came with it. Even bless was a huge boost to the warriors. In Mapleland right now, I'm a level 110 Dragon Knight, and a lot of warriors around that level require a priest to even train at a training ground. And now, yes, they're trying to maximize maximize efficiency by putting all points in strength. So yes, they could raise dexterity to make up that gap. But what happens is with warriors, what's unique about them is that the higher level you get, the less dexterity you need, because dexterity is only needed for warriors for accuracy. There is no weapon requirement or armor requirement for dex. It's purely strength. So as you level and you get closer to the target monster that you're grinding at, or the raid level monster like Zakum is 140 or something, I think, and Horntail's 160, once you get to those levels, you're not going to hit a miss because you're at the same level. So it's actually them trying to save money, and they understand that, people understand when you play a warrior, the less dex you can put points into, the better, right? So I say this to say, bishops and priests were very much needed for their utility skills, not just for Holy Symbol. Holy Symbol is a huge part of bishop's identity, don't get me wrong, but having a bishop in your party as Zakum is pretty much mandatory. You need to have unless you want to bring a lot of potions and sustain yourself, and if someone dies, there's no resurrection, I would say at least one bishop. And that's when people have already caught up with the content, had enough time to have sufficient meso to even take that much potions and cures into a raid. In the earlier stages of the game when it releases, nobody's going to have all cures like that. Nobody's going to have money for potions like that. And in earlier the game, in Zakum, priest, and even in Party Quest, priests are going to be very much essential. A lot of people are going to prefer having the priest, and that need is going to obviously minimize over time as meso gets more, as people farm more meso and character level increases, and the raid is Zakum is level 40, but your party's level is 160. Yeah, you might not need a bishop there, but in due time, Horntail will come out and Pink Bean will come out, and hopefully other raid bosses will come out where bishops are needed more for than just Holy Symbol. And honestly, Holy Symbol on raid is kind of like a pointless thing anyway. You spend 30 minutes to 40 minutes to get that EXP with Holy Symbol. If it was about experience points, most people would just go farm. People come to raid to loot and get good items and try to make money. they don't necessarily come to raid to get EXP. It's really very inefficient.
Remove the EXP boost entirely in boss maps.
But keep the full 150% for regular mob grinding.
Yes. Let it be a grinding tool, not a mandatory boss raid component. This forces parties to value the bishop for their real utility, the safety net. Holy Shield, Resurrection, saving everyone pots with heal, removing debuffs with the spell. That becomes their primary value in a raid.
I agree with that.
It loses that massive XP utility in bosses. How does the Dark Knight side of the pair get adjusted to compensate and enhance their synergy?
We make the bishop's healing more necessary. 2 Dark Knight skills get changed. First, Sacrifice.
That skill was pretty underwhelming originally, right?
Yeah, damage wasn't great for the HP.
Sacrifice was bad.
Yeah.
Scale the damage way up, make Sacrifice a really potent single target attack, but increase the HP cost significantly.
So the DK does big damage, but needs the bishop to heal them immediately afterward.
Exactly. Creates a constant demand for the bishop's heal skill directed at the Dark Knight.
And the second DK change, Dragon Blood.
This one becomes a party buff. Instead of just buffing the DK,
Hopefully-
Dragon Blood gives the entire...
Hopefully she talks about Berserk, because here's the thing about Dragon Knight and Priest and how they're best buddies in third job advancement and they always want to be around one another. But then Dark Knight and those Dragon Knight and the Priest in due time become Dark Knight and Bishops, and they start wanting to stay away from one another. Well, it's usually the Dark Knight that wants to stay away from the Priest. It turns into a toxic relationship, and Dark Knight just says, I've had enough of you. I don't want to be around you anymore. So making changes to Sacrifice to do more health while doing like essentially a stronger version of power attack or power strike, I guess would be a good idea. But then again, like, would you forego using Spear Buster to use Sacrifice? Maybe she'll talk about that. I don't see myself not using Spear Buster over like even an empowered power strike with Sacrifice. And after a while, Dragon Knights don't want to be at full HP anyway. Identity of Dragon Knights and the identity of Dark Knights, the reason why they went from Dragon to Dark is because they kind of go emo a little bit. They don't want to be healed. They don't want to receive Bless because they already have self-sustaining powerful buffs that Bless and Heal can override. So they go from a character that essentially needs heal all the time like a little baby, and then they become independent with Beholder buff healing them, with Beholder buff giving them a stronger buff than Bless, and with Berserk 20 or 30, they need to maintain their health below 50%. So they don't want the bishop to heal them. They don't want bishop's buff with Bless, and they don't want to... I guess those are the two. Maybe there's more, but they essentially don't need the bishop for a lot of reasons, so they kind of become independent.
Party a small damage increase.
Okay, party damage buff. Sounds good. What's the catch?
The catch is the entire party starts losing HP over time while the buff is active.
Whoa. So the bishop isn't just healing the DK from Sacrifice hits, they're constantly needing to use heal to keep the whole party topped up because of Dragon Blood.
Precisely. It turns the bishop into the absolute linchpin of party survival. Their heal skill goes from proactively essential for everyone. It cements their role as the ultimate safety and sustain provider, making their utility indispensable even without the broken EXP boost.
That's clever. Okay, last pair. Hero and Shadower. This one often felt a bit...
That was interesting.
How do we make
Making Dragon Blood a skill that takes away at party members' health for attack buff. It's kind of like a different version. Like you're turning Dragon Blood into a party buff, but instead of like Rage where it reduces the physical attack or physical defense, it actually just takes your health away. That's a pretty cool, interesting way to turn Dragon Blood from a solo party buff to Rage. Like I'm sure it will get like, you will have to see like, is it worth it to use Rage or Dragon Blood and which one's better? But you know, Dragon Knights already offer hyper body, so to essentially give him another buff that raises attack damage to the party, maybe is too eager, I guess, too good, and they're already good. Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe.
But their core role felt ambiguous.
Hero and Shadower as a pair synergy. That's interesting. Let's hear this one.
So how do they build a synergy here? Starting with the hero rework, it seems focused on their combo attack system.
Right. The hero's entire gameplay loop revolves around building and maintaining combo orbs for increased damage. The proposal is to lean hard into that risk-reward aspect.
Okay.
Reward even higher, but make maintaining those orbs far more difficult, far more precarious.
Okay, how do they make it more precarious? What's the new vulnerability for the hero?
The proposal is that the hero now loses 4 advanced combo orbs, the ones used for an advanced combo attack, their main damage skill, every single time they are hit by an enemy attack.
4 orbs per hit? That's harsh.
It's significant. While the chance to recharge orbs on attack remains pretty high, suggested at 75%, getting hit now carries a severe, direct, and immediate penalty to their damage output. You can't just stand there and trade blows anymore if you want to maintain max combo.
And it's not just the orbs, right? Their big damage buff, Enrage, also becomes riskier.
Exactly. Enrage is the hero's signature steroid, giving a massive plus 60 weapon attack for 60 seconds. Huge damage boost. Under this new proposed system, that Enrage buff completely resets turns off if the hero takes just 3 hits within that 60-second window.
Only 3 hits in a whole minute. While fighting a boss? Wow.
Yeah. It means the hero's absolute maximum DPM potential is now entirely reliant on maintaining that Enrage buff for the full duration, which makes them incredibly vulnerable to any stray boss mechanics, summoned mobs, or just chip damage. One mistake or just bad luck 3 times, and your biggest damage source is gone for its cooldown period, suggested 6 minutes.
Okay, this creates a massive risk. Who steps in to provide the necessary mitigation, the protection, to make
the Shadower smokescreen
style actually viable?
That what?
It has to be the Shadower, right?
It has to be. The Shadower's identity has always been loosely tied to avoidance and misdirection through skills like Smokescreen, Party Invincibility Cloud, and Darksight solo stealth. The proposal here is to solidify that protector role by replacing the Shadower's shield mastery skill.
Which is another historically low impact, kind of useless passive for them.
Right, useless for a dagger-wielding Shadower. Replace that with a brand new, powerful party buff skill, Shadow Body.
Shadow Body. What does that do for the party?
It's proposed to grant a flat 15% chance to avoid any incoming attack or skill for all party members standing near the Shadower.
15% avoidance. Okay, now I see the connection.
This is the absolute linchpin of the synergy. Now, the hero's maximum DPM, which remember requires maintaining...
Sounds interesting, but I feel like a lot of this is very not Maplestory like. I mean, it's you're meant to like explore, right, and kind of have fun with it. So I understand why. One second. Hello? The point is to have fun, right, and kind of explore. A lot of these seem overly ambitious, and it would change the game for sure. Like, we're just talking about something completely different now, right? None of these are going to get implemented. It's fun to watch, and it's kind of it's very creative and it's like thought-provoking, but these type of changes, if you implement them into the game, it won't be Maplestory anymore. It will be a game like Maplestory, but it will bring so much change to how we remember Maplestory that, like, I can't even make like a judgment on it, because one thing will change one thing, and that will change another, and it will have a ripple effect of the entire experience of Maplestory. But the whole idea is really cool, you know. the shadower, being around the shadower and having avoidability. Now with the warriors taking more damage or losing orbs upon taking damage, it's a different game at that point. Like you really have to, it's not a laxed game anymore where you can kind of sit back and chill or semi-lax. It's more like you're playing an action MMO. And you need to be actively engaged and hyper focused entire time in order for you to play the game, and that's a whole different vibe, right? Well, at least for me, I play Maplestory, and I kind of play to escape the high-paced, high-intensity video games. I kind of log in to just chill, and if there's all these factors that you need to put in order for you to maximize your character, by like, let's look at Paladin and Archmages. You need to go to a certain type of map and use Ice Demon or Fire Demon to lower or get the buffs up, and you have like 4 other buffs in your rotation, and you have to play with another character like literally side by side as a synergy system. It's kind of like just pretty high intense. It requires a lot of your attention and a lot of your focus. It's not like you're in a party setting and you're doing your own thing within the party setting in your own area. You're actively killing the same mob together with one another person. And there has to be some cost factor in that equation where maybe it is more fun for a little bit, but after a while it's just not as chill, you know?
Keeping enrage active by avoiding hits relies heavily, fundamentally, on that passive 15% avoidance chance provided by the Shadower's Shadow Body buff. It significantly increases the odds that the hero can make it through the enraged duration without taking those 3 critical hits.
And they can coordinate smokescreen too, right?
Absolutely. For those really crucial moments, the hero and Shadower can time the use of smokescreen, which grants temporary 100% avoidance inside its cloud to fully guarantee the hero's safety during a critical 60-second enrage window, allowing the hero to unleash their absolute maximum potential damage without fear of losing the buff.
Okay, wow. So instead of just being 2 separate melee classes kind of competing for similar party slots, they become this incredibly tightly knit synergistic duo. The hero provides potentially the best cleave damage in the game, hitting multiple targets with combo attack, but only if the Shadower is actively using their unique protective and avoidance skills to guarantee the hero's uptime and survival.
Exactly. It finally gives the Shadower a clear, indispensable party role beyond just mezzo explosion gimmicks or mediocre single target damage. They become the hero's enabler, their necessary protector.
Shadowers aren't just that. Shadowers actually, with Boomerang Step, I think they can hit up to three mobs at once, and that's a Kumar, maybe even 4 actually. If you position yourself well, you can hit multiple arms. That's 1. 2, they're not just people that use Meso Explosion on bosses. I think are, I don't understand that. I don't understand why they do that, because you probably are doing just the same amount of damage, if not slightly more, and wasted a lot of meso. You might as well just do Savage Blow to stack up the mesos from Pickpocket or Boomerang Step and explode those after a while when there's a lot of mobs flying around, to clear the mobs where, you just want to... You're not really there to do the most damage anyway. You're there to just kind of do somewhat damage. And if the party needs smokescreen later, that's kind of like your identity. It's essentially stress-free. And it's actually very chill. So, Meso Explosion is just part of the Shadowers kit, but I wouldn't say it defined their identity. Their identity obviously in raid setting is a little bit more limited, because you can't assault her you can't assault her into a boss. You really just have to be stationary and do your best at dealing damage. So a part of Thief's identity was lost due to how big the boss mobs can be, but it's perfectly fine. I mean, the character was still fun, and you had a sense of purpose and a reason to play the character, and you always knew in the back of your mind you were an insurance plan for your party. With smokescreen, you could always help out if things went south. And when everything's going good, all you worry about is damage. And if that's the case, if everything was going to go good, then you might as well just take all Night Lords and one Bowmaster, like she said in the beginning of the video. But the part of a reason why you take bishops and shadowers and other type of classes is because they have something special to give that people, if they wanted to, take advantage of. So
it mandates that avoidance support role for them.
We've just walked through 5 pretty complex, technically detailed rework proposals for these class pairs. Stepping back now, what's the overall impact this system would have on the game's meta, on how parties are formed and how the game is played at a high level?
Well, the biggest impact is that it creates these 5 beautifully defined, distinct paired identities. Each pair brings something unique and crucially necessary to the table for endgame content.
Let's quickly summarize those 5 new roles again based on the reworks.
Okay, so running through them. 1, NL Archers. They likely still hold the crown for the highest potential single target damage, but it's not uncontested anymore. Their key support is providing sharp eyes for party-wide crit boosts. Still the damage kings, but less dominant.
Right.
Buccaneer or Corsair. They emerge as the strong, second-best single target damage option. Their damage is more consistent now, and they bring that incredible extra utility like time.
So I think that's about,
potentially better for
that's like the idea of the video, right? Like she's just going over it now.
Utility DPS.
She's just kind of going over it now. And that's essentially the idea, right? Is that you can create like situations where 2 classes can synergy off of one another. Do you have another name? Do you have an identity you do not? You have an identity you do not know you have? I'm not sure what that means. But it will essentially create a brand new game, you know. And if you implement those synergies, what happens when, like she said, a shadower and hero now is the meta for damage? What happens to assassins? How can you make assassins more viable? Like, people will still play assassins, sure, but it just takes away too much from the assassin and what the assassins are. The thing is, I think the Maplestory, the way it exists right now, is something pretty special in a way that people don't play the character just because it's, not only people do, like, there's multiple elements I think to on why people play certain characters, right? People play the character because it might be fun, but people also play the character for the intrinsic value that it has when it comes to like portraying the person you are. People want to play off meta and sucky characters. I say this often, is that not everybody wants to play the best character in the game or the most common character in the game because it does the most damage, or it does the most it does the most damage and it's the most flashy. Some people want to play off meta characters for other reasons outside of what the video gaming experience is. People want to play Fire Poison Mage because they want to stand out. And that's absolutely the truth, is that they know that Fire Poison Mages are unpopular, the least played, and Paladins as well. And they want to walk around as a high, they dream about that time in the future, that being a high level Fire Poison Mage and high level Paladin walking around town will garnish them some reputation and some respect. And that's just absolutely true. You know, I walk around town and I see people saying, wow, look, he's a Fire Poison Mage. And why do people say that? It's because they know it's a like really hard class to play in the culture that exists in KMS, where people party up together, use holy symbol to share and then like grind efficiently together in a party setting. Fire Poison Mages don't really have a spot in any of those settings, and they essentially have to solo grind all the way up to whenever. And to see a high level Fire Poison Mage is almost like seeing a rare gem, and people that are the owners and players of those characters, that's one of the main values that they're going for, right? When it comes to like, why do I want to play Fire Poison Mage? So when you like implement stuff like synergies of let's make Fire Poison Mages into a tank and force them into a party setting, and let them participate in a party setting, making them more viable. It's you understand how it's like a little bit of a wrong approach on what the fire poison mages themselves would want, because you're subjecting them into a framework of how people should enjoy the video game, and there's more ways than we can probably sit here and think about that people enjoy enjoy Maplestory. It's a social game at the end of the day, and it's an MMO which captured the socializing aspect really well. And to lose that, and to make the focus framework and the only framework that's being poured out by the developers, by saying like, this is a framework, this is a synergy that exists that you can obviously take advantage of in a setting to enjoy the game at a higher level, is the wrong question. People don't enjoy the game because they do more damage or because they're more viable. Some people want to be alone. Some people understand that they're not going to be accepted into a party, and they're completely fine with that. So it's a difficult way to like, it's a difficult problem to tackle, really. But does it really need to be tackled? Why don't we just focus on progressing the game with what the game already is, and make new content to open areas where, and Kidor said this too, is going forward when you're making new content, let the mechanics of the bosses be the demanding factor for other party members to join and come in the party. You playing a fire poison mage, one of the things why it's not much of an issue, and we don't need to like make every class viable for endgame content, and a slight tweak of just requiring one fire poison mage in a level 180 plus content is enough. The reason for that is because 60 to 70% of the population, I don't know, I'm coming up with a random number, but a lot of people are already going to play Night Lords and Bowmans and Dark Knights. And these classes, because they consume a lot of the player base percentage, they need more spots in the party. But if you're a 170, 180 fire poison mage, you don't need to necessarily be a damage healer, or like, you don't need a class change intrinsically to be more viable, because you're going to be very rare and hard to find anyway. So even if you have one spot for a fire poison mage to enjoy late game content, I think that's enough. And that can be that can be implemented through the developers, requiring such mechanics that only fire poison mages can fulfill, or requiring such mechanics that only shadowers or paladins or these off meta classes can come in and shine on, and consume one spot in a 12-man or 18-man party or a raid. And let the rest of the people just play what they want to play. If they have, in an 18-man party, there's only 10 Night Lords, people will put in whoever, they'll put in a marksman, they'll put in a shadower for damage, whatever it is. So that's another element, is that it's hard to get to those level anyway. So all of these videos and like exploring the ideas of balancing the game is all fun and stuff, but there's a lot that needs to be considered, and it's extremely interesting to see. But I feel like any changes that's too grand or big is over ambitious, and it's going to turn into a different game essentially, and challenge the status quo too much that it will actually bring instability and make things worse. Give me 1 second. Hello? So yeah, that was a cool video though. Did you guys enjoy that video? I did. It's nice exploring that, saving money, making that money, and hopefully I can get me a nice weapon at level 60. That's what I'm aiming for, a level 60 weapon. I can sell all these things I don't need. Alright guys, that's gonna be enough for me. That's gonna be it for me for today. I'll get on tomorrow and start streaming again at 9 a.m. EST. Around 9 a.m. I try to get on time, and hopefully I can figure out this VPN issue where it doesn't kick me off of YouTube, so I can actually, you know, play the game instead of solo grinding for hours. Which it was still fun because I was like just chilling. But I'll get on tomorrow 9 a.m. EST. 내일 저녁 11시에 다시 방송 키도록 하겠습니다. Bye everyone. See you tomorrow.